attending the first celebration of the Burns Fellowship and the Robbie Burns birthday. We're really lucky today. We have got Michael Harlow here, who is the 2009 Burns Fellow, and we also have Professor McIlvanney from the University of Otago. So if you'd like to give them all a warm hand, thank you very much.
Happy birthday. Thanks very much for coming. For a Scotsman, it's very pleasant to be able to celebrate Burns Day in a city with such powerful Burns connections. And some of these connections are very well known. There's, of course, Burns' nephew, Reverend Thomas Burns, who was one of the co-founders of Dunedin. Sir John Steele's statue of Burns has a private place in the Octagon. There's also the suburb of Mosgiel, named after Burns' first farm, Mosgiel, with two S's. At the university we have the Burns Building, and of course the Robert Burns Fellowship, which we are celebrating today. But some of Dunedin's Burns connections are perhaps rather less well known. Burns was also an important literary influence in the life of this city. The poet John Barr, who composed a song for Dunedin's first Burns Supper in 1856, was very heavily influenced by Burns, and so too were some more modern poets. Archibald Baxter, the father of James K. Baxter, wrote a poem called Macleary's Lament about a Central Otago farmer and his conflict with the local county council. And he wrote it in the Burns stanza. I'll just quote one stanza for you. In all these gullies I've made bridges, with great logs split by maul and wedges. I've mown the fern from off the ridges to make pig bedding, and with great care I've nurtured hedges around my steading. And James Kay himself commented on his father's poem as follows: My father's ear and nose were leading him in the right direction when he borrowed the forms and something of the language of Burns and applied them to the situation of a New Zealand farmer at war with the county council. And it's certainly the case that Baxter Sr. passed on his love of Burns to Baxter Jr. And particularly when James K. Baxter was the Burns Fellow at the University of Otago in 1965 and 1966, he seemed to have Robert Burns very often on his mind. He wrote poems addressed to Robert Burns. He wrote gave talks and lectures on the subject of Burns, and some of these are collected in this volume, The Man on the Horse, whose title alludes to Burns' great poem, Tam O'Shanter. So Dunedin is a city with very strong Burns connections, and one of these, as I've mentioned, is the Robert Burns Fellowship, established in 1958 to commemorate the bicentenary of Burns' birth the following year. It's a year-long position, and its aim is to encourage and promote imaginative New Zealand literature and to associate writers thereof with the university. It's attached to the Department of English. There have been numerous extremely distinguished holders of the fellowship, including James K. Baxter, Janet Frame, Ralph Hottery, Bill Manhire, and we have another extremely distinguished holder of the fellowship with us today. One of the nice things about the Burns Fellowship, I think, is that it celebrates Burns while allowing space for other writers. And certainly in Scotland that's not always the case. It sometimes seems that Burns is such a dominant literary figure in Scotland that he engrosses all the attention that might otherwise go to some other writers. The poet Alexander Scott has a sardonic little poem about this entitled Scotch Poets. The poem goes, Scotch Poets, was the tether. In other words, who's the other one? We only need one poet. Thankfully, that's not the sentiment that holds sway in New Zealand, and we are very grateful to have with us Michael Harlow, who is a poet, editor, librettist, scriptwriter, and union therapist. A poetry editor at Landfall for a decade, Michael has also been the Catherine Mansfield Fellow in 1986 and was the 2004 Randall Cottage Writing Residence. Among the numerous prizes Michael has won are the 2008 Bravado International Poetry Prize, where he took first prize, He's also represented New Zealand at a number of international festivals and seminars. His 7 books of poetry include Cassandra's Daughter and, most recently, The Tramp Conductor's Blue Cat. Michael has been really quite a wonderful, exemplary Burns Fellow at the university. He's been a very lively and engaging presence around the department, a stalwart of our Friday morning teas. I realise that the institution of morning tea holds a very central place in the life of New Zealand. And Michael has been extremely generous with his time helping aspiring writers, both the students and staff. And it's been one of the great privileges of my first year at Tago to have met and worked alongside Michael Harlow. It's something of a shame that Michael's time as Burns Fellow is now drawing to an end, but I hope that Michael will be a very frequent visitor to Dunedin in the coming years. So I'll now hand you over to Michael.